Hey to all of my eulogizers out there. I say eulogizers. I said in a previous episode I was going to call you my parishioners, but I was thinking maybe eulogizers. The thing is, these are both very long. That's like 4 syllables. Parishioner, eulogizer. That's 5 syllables. Look, can we think of something shorter to call you? Send me a suggestion, all right? But anyway, for now, welcome back. And welcome to another episode of Eulogise Me. This week in the studio with me, I have Shalaka Kurup. In fact, she corrected me on the pronunciation of her name. She likes it to be pronounced Shalaka. I think I said that right, Shalaka. But she's a comedian. She's also a doctor. She has a PhD. Smart. That's what it's all about. But listen, we get into a really lovely chat. Really lovely eulogy, also I may say, quite humorous. So look, with no further ado, let's get into it. But what I'd like you to do is please subscribe, tell a friend, leave a review, leave me a comment, contact me, tell me you love me, tell me you love me, you want me to be in your life, send me all the positivity in the world and I'll send it right back to you. But listen, let's get into the episode. Here is Shalaka Kurup. Hello, welcome to another episode of Eulogise Me. This week in the studio, I have comedian, doctor.
Correct.
Right, I like it. I like that. Authority. Yes. Yeah, comedian, doctor, and all-around cool person for the time that I've known her is Shalaka Kurup.
Hello.
Hey, did I get all that pronunciation correct?
100% correct, yes.
All right, fantastic. Now, a few times when I've done the pod, I kind of like to jump into a bit of an origin story.
Sure.
As to where I remember meeting the people that I sit down and have these conversations with.
Yeah.
And I think the first time we met was at Backyard Comedy Club. Does that ring a bell?
That is correct, yeah. The knockout.
Yes, it was the comedy knockout.
That was so long ago. Oh my God.
It does feel like a really long time ago. How did you do that night? I don't remember. I think I got knocked out. Was I even on? I don't even remember.
You were on. I think you were on. I got knocked out in the first or second round, one of the two. Definitely didn't make it to the finals.
Do you remember who to?
No.
All right, yeah.
I have a way of living my life by suppressing painful memories. So.
Okay. I think that's probably the healthiest way to do it. No, I think if I was on that night, then I think I got knocked out to Farhan Solo. And the two of us went into the competition because Farhan is a fellow comedian and we went into the competition together and we're friends and we were like, let's just not get drawn against each other in the first round. And we did. And his comedy won. So I don't know what that says about mine, but nevertheless.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where I remember meeting you. And I just remember you had a really cool style about you in terms of your comedy. It was, I would use the word clinical.
Yes. Well, yeah. Okay.
It just felt precise. It felt like it was clear. It was precise. There wasn't a lot of umming and ahhing. There wasn't a lot of fat on anything that you said. It just felt like it was really, really clear. But yeah, we had a little chat afterwards, and that's the first time I recall.
I think it was clinical probably because I'd memorized every single word to like properly. A single word wrong and I would have forgotten the rest of my set. That's how nervous I was back then.
Got you.
So I was just running a script in my head the entire time. So that's probably what did it.
With regards to like that nervousness that you speak about, do you find that you don't get as nervous anymore, or do you still have those nerves from time to time?
It depends on the gig, I think. So like an open mic night or something like that, probably not. Especially when I'm trying new material a little bit more. But mostly probably not.
Got you.
But a bigger gig or a gig I'm doing for the first time or in a new place, then it comes back again sometimes.
How do you find you manage those nerves?
Much better now. When I first started out, I used to manage them by drinking. Which
like most of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you quickly learn it's not sustainable financially or health-wise.
Right.
I think now I just try to ignore it and just work it out on stage.
Yeah.
And just keep talking. Sometimes I'll start with a couple of jokes that are kind of like on autopilot. Just that I'm talking and then the second there's a reaction, I feel more calm.
Yes.
So I'll layer my set that way.
Got you. It's so interesting, that feeling, because you need that first reaction, don't you? It's like you just want to get that first little bit of laughter, and it settles you down so much.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, you know you're funny. I know I've got funny things to say, but until I get confirmation,
then I'm not.
Right, officially, I'm not funny until you laugh. So that's a mad one.
Yeah, and sometimes that laugh never comes, and you're like, well, this is going to be a very long, oh my God, it's been 3 minutes. Holy shit.
Time goes so slow
Yeah.
when you are bombing or when things are not going your way. It's
I
crazy.
remember a 15-minute set where I felt like I'd been on there for hours and nothing was going well. And I looked at my watch and it had been 4 minutes. And I was like, oh my God, I have 9 more minutes to do on the stage to silence.
That's when you just grit your teeth and you're like, I'm just going to say the words.
Yep.
And whatever happens, happens.
Yep.
But I dig that. Okay, so tell me, because I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a while. We've been back and forth and we finally made it happen. But tell me your thoughts when I asked you to write your own eulogy. What were the first things that came to your mind?
What were the first things that came to my mind? I think it felt a bit strange writing a eulogy for myself. And I don't mean this in like a depressed way, but I was just like, okay, so here are all the bad things about me. She bites her nails. So it was a bit weird trying to focus on what would be said about me. Also, I'm Hindu. No, I'm not Hindu, but my family is.
Okay.
And in Indian funerals, you don't really have that as a concept.
Right.
So I actually, this is very creepy, but I watched a couple of eulogies online.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I love the fact that this is such a PhD thing to do. Like you took a research approach to the podcast. I love that. Yeah.
And those were very sad. And I was like, let's do whatever the opposite of that is.
Okay, got you. I always find it interesting asking that question because everyone kind of perceives it differently.
Yeah.
And I've had some people outright say to me, look, I dig the concept, but I can't do that, you know?
Why?
Well, you know, I think people have very different approaches to the idea of death.
I see.
But equally, what I try to express to people is this isn't necessarily a podcast about death. It's really a eulogy is an opportunity for you to write whatever you want about yourself.
Yeah.
And some people have done comedic ones.
Yeah.
Some people have been very serious. But at the same time, you end up talking more about life than anything else.
Yeah.
It's just an angle on it. But I respect everyone's, you know, sensitivities, and I leave it there.
Yeah, that's fair.
But with that being said, I am now going to hand over to you to read your eulogy.
Cool.
So as you all know, on the podcast, I get my guests to write their own eulogy and then read it. Then we jump off into a conversation about it. So here is Shalaka Kurup's eulogy.
Shalaka died of what can only be described as a broken spirit after hearing yet another "my pronouns are attack helicopter" joke. She's survived by the boyfriend that she made fun of on stage, the parents that she made fun of on stage, and the concept of shame. Despite being the record holder for the highest number of Netflix specials, her one wish to withdraw all the multiple millions she had in her bank account and swim amongst the notes in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, Uncle Scrooge-style, was never fulfilled. As per her wishes, we are gathered here today with 12 or 24 bottles of wine, taking full advantage of Sainsbury's annual summer discount of 20% off of every 6 bottles. There'll be a will reading later where you'll find out that she's left all of her money out of nothing but respect to the male open mic comedian who compares his ex-girlfriend's vaginas to different types of deli meat. R.I.P.
R.I.P. indeed. What a eulogy. Oh, geez. How long did that take you to write? Was that a quick one?
Once I started, it was pretty quick. It was about 7 minutes. I was like, I know what I want to say. Love it.
Well, I mean, I read it, wrote a few notes down, a few things that I'm going to jump off on and talk to you about.
Sure.
But you mentioned making fun of your parents and your boyfriend on stage.
I do.
Right? Yeah. Do you find people close to you to be like one of the biggest sources of material?
I think if the people close to me didn't do so much stupid shit, then they would not be source of material. But they do. They seem to continuously find things that are very funny to me to do.
Got you.
No, I don't mean that. I don't mean that.
Oh, it's staying in. It's not getting edited out. In fact, I might edit it to make it look like she means that. No, that's cool. But tell me a bit about your parents then. Are they back in India?
They are back in India, yeah.
Okay, so parents are back in India, and also because one of the things that I always realize in these conversations is I don't really know a lot about the people I'm talking to, and that's what I love because then I get to know about you. So, do you have any siblings? What's your background in terms of that?
No siblings, just me.
No siblings,
Yeah.
so only. In fact, I knew that. I knew she was the only child because Shalaka's got this really great joke about. It's a joke about being an only child.
Yeah, that's when a man and a woman love each other enough. That's what it is.
Perfect. Yeah. I love that. Okay, so only child. And how long did you grow up in India for before you moved?
I lived in India until I was 18, and then I moved here for university, and then I never left.
Okay. Which uni did you go to?
Nottingham.
Nottingham Uni.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Nottingham? Yeah,
There
that's
was-
the reaction I was expecting.
There was literally no reason. Honest story, I applied for a bunch of universities based on just random recommendations from my school. And they didn't know very much about UK universities either. Spoke to my uncle in the UK who was like, these are all really shit universities. You should not go to any of these.
Can I get a few names? Which ones were you? Just to make a few people feel bad when they listen and they realize they went to those unis.
I think one of them was the University of Derby, which I'm allowed to say that because Nottingham hates Derby.
Okay.
And then there was Swansea, which is a good university, but the course I'd applied for was garbage. And the University of Kent, and my uncle was like, you don't want to live in Kent. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So then I had to apply through clearing, and I had a friend who was in Nottingham, and he was like, if you're applying through clearing, you can only apply to one university. Why don't you come to the one where you know someone already? And I was like, okay, decision made.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So it was completely random, and I just ended up in Nottingham one day as an 18-year-old.
And was it your first time here in the UK?
Yep. Yeah.
Got you. So how was that for you in terms of like the culture shock or the differences? Or did you feel like you just kind of fit in right away?
I think I was just so excited to be living a new life that I didn't. I'm really glad. A lot of people say that if they went back, they would make better decisions as knowing what they know now. I'm so glad that I didn't know what I knew then, because I feel like I would have been a lot more scared and nervous about what I was doing. But I was just so excited to be doing something new that I didn't really introspect or investigate or think about what was happening around me.
Yeah.
So I was friends with like a massive racist for 3 years.
Oh, wow. Wait, hold on a second. Did you at least know the person was racist, or did it only come out after 3 years that person was racist?
So everyone was she was a very loud person, and everyone you would excuse her other behaviors as that's just her. And then when I finished uni and met other people outside of that social circle, I started to realize it's very embarrassing, but I just thought all British people were just slightly racist. I thought it was just like a genetic thing.
Well, they are.
So when she'd say things, I was just like, oh, it's just because she's British. Like it was a disability or something.
Got you. Oh, geez. Okay, so 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, but did she say anything that was like outright racist towards like your culture and your background?
Yeah. She used to say stuff all the time.
Wow.
When at once I was dating this guy, and he was coming around for dinner, and she's like, wow, now that you're with her, every night's curry night. Am I right?
Okay, got you. Yeah.
She used to correct my pronunciation a lot, which I just thought was because they love English. And then I was like, you're from Kent. Like,
So I
what do
think
you
it's,
know about English?
That's a fair point. And to be fair, I don't even think people who live in Kent want to live in Kent.
Yeah.
But no, so friends with a massive racist for a long period of time. So like you were saying, in some ways that naivety and that lack of knowledge about things was a blessing in disguise.
Massively.
Coming over here.
Yeah, I just went with things because I didn't know any better, and I had a lot of great experiences because of it. Now I'd be a lot more scared to do a lot of the things that I did back then.
Yeah, like I was gonna ask, like, in which ways do you think it would have changed you? Like, what do you think you wouldn't have done had you known back then what you know now?
I think I would have, like, a very simple thing is the food that we had in halls. As someone who came from India, I was like, oh, this food sucks. But I was like, I'm living in a new country, embrace the culture. All the food here sucks. This is how you live. And then I was like, no, it's just Hall's food is particularly bad.
Yeah.
or stuff where I would just get lost after a night out. And I'd just be like, oh, well, I'm just walk home for 2.5 hours.
Right.
And now if I get lost and I'm stuck somewhere and my phone isn't working or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I'm fully fucked. I'm so anxious about it. But back then I'd be like, yeah, 2.5 walk back. I lost some random man on the street for directions. Ask him how to get home.
Got you.
Just all stupid shit like that. But I was so naive that I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, they do say sometimes that naivety is what gets you into a thing. It's what actually pushes you forward to do certain things. Like, if even with comedy, it's like you jump into it and there's a naivety there. And sometimes that is what helps. It helps you to keep getting up and getting back on stage,
You do that first set and you're like, well, I'm going to be in live at the Apollo in a couple of months.
Right.
And that's what keeps you going. And then 3 years later, you're like, oh, well, I'm here now.
This is very true. So, okay, parents. Spoke a little bit about your parents, only child. Are your parents still together?
They are, yes.
They are? Yeah. Okay, lovely stuff. What do they do, just out of interest?
Both my parents are now retired, but my dad, they refuse to embrace retirement, so my dad works for a charity.
Yeah.
And my mum runs a business, her own business. It's like an event space type situation.
That's cool. I was talking to my mum recently because my mum recently retired. And I used to try and tell people, don't think of it as retirement. Like, think of it as repurposing.
Yeah.
And my mum came up with this great one where she said, I'm not retired, I'm rewired.
Nice.
I was like, okay, all right. I said, Mama Harris is coming up with some decent things. I might have to get her to do a type 5 on stage, But yeah, so also you mentioned your boyfriend being a source of material for you, but also how long have you two been together? What's been the origin story there?
We've been together for about 6 years, I think.
Oh wow!
Something like that.
Okay, that's longer than most marriages.
Yeah, we've been together for a really long time. We met. Well, I kind of knew of him because he was friends with a friend. My friend who he was friends with brought him to a house party, and that's the first time we kind of got together.
Cool. So this would have been what, back in uni days?
I was doing my PhD at that point.
Doing your PhD, got you. And if you had to say, what are some of the silly things that give you material from him?
To be fair, it's less about him and more about our relationship.
Yeah, I got you.
We've had we had a fun experience at a wedding where there was some Spanish people. This is literally a joke I tell on stage where Spanish people had a nickname about how handsome he was.
Yeah.
And my nickname was less flattering. Just stuff about when you spend that much time with someone, you start noticing things that you're like, is this relatable to other people as well?
Yeah.
Not that I don't do very much of ball and chain humor. It's very much it's for, like, I'm currently writing a bit about how he loves to play board games. Yeah. Which is, I'm working on it.
Well, I mean, I didn't expect that to be the punchline. It's not. I'm working on this bit about board games. Right, I know it is a process.
Yeah. So when you spend that much time with someone, you start noticing things that are funny about your existence together, rather than it's not really about him, but
I get you.
Our life together.
I get you. I can understand that. Like, bearing in mind, like I've been with my girlfriend for about 2 and a bit years now, and you're right. You just kind of develop. It's an observational thing of just sometimes even just looking at yourselves in a situation and thinking, what is this exactly? And do other people go through these particular things, Yeah. And also what I've found a lot right now is just the stage of my life that I'm in. It's like a transitional stage from going from like that real youth to being a real mature adult. And you're like, in a relationship, that's interesting also.
Yeah.
When you're like, let's go home and have a cup of Ovaltine.
Yeah.
And watch iPlayer. And it's like, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. Yeah. Okay, so also in your eulogy, you mentioned the idea of, or I interpret it as being sick of hearing hack jokes. effectively
Yeah.
at the,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
at the top of your eulogy. But expand on that for me though, because it was centered around pronouns. Is that a particular joke that you've heard quite a lot then?
I think it just so happened that when the day I was writing this eulogy, I just messaged you on Instagram saying I'll get it done. And then the first video that popped up was yet another male comedian going, my pronouns are. And I was like, oh, I'm so sick of this. Just, I want to chuck my phone across the room. And that just ended up being the first line of my eulogy because it was so fresh in my brain.
Got you.
I've seen so many of those.
Yeah.
So like my pronouns are just eat. My pronouns are that bitch. You know, so many of them. It's just when someone's, especially I think what annoys me, it's not hack jokes in general. I do a hack joke. We all do.
I've got my whole set.
We all have them. But it's the fact that it's one of the things I find exciting about hearing a new joke is the punchline is a surprise.
Yes.
And when someone sets up a my pronouns are joke, they always set it up after context that they provided, where 9 times out of 10 they do my pronouns are and I can guess what they're going to be. And it's not just the whole like shitting on trans non-binary people bit, but it's also it's not a good joke, man. I could see that coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I guess I think that thing of the surprise element, that's the one thing that it's always so important to keep in the forefront of your mind when you're writing.
Yeah.
And I kind of find that the first thing I think of, that's generally going to be the thing that I shouldn't go with, you know, because that's the one thing everyone can kind of see.
Yeah.
So yeah, I dig that. I wanted to ask you about your views on pronouns and the whole idea of pronouns, how that whole idea of pronouns has become so prevalent in society and people wanting to be known by particular things. How do you feel about that?
I think let people be called whatever they want to be called.
Yeah.
It's not bothering me. It's not bothering anyone else. If people want specific pronouns, go for it. I want my name to be like pronounced in a very specific way because I think that's respectful to me.
Yeah. How is that, by the way?
Shalaka.
Shalaka.
Yeah.
Shalaka. All right, cool.
So if I'm going to be anal about that, who am I to tell other people that I'm not going to say they, them if they want it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I get that. I've been in like quite a few situations where, you know, I'm introduced to people who want to be known as they or them. And one of the things I want to feel comfortable enough to say is I totally get it and I'm happy to do it. But if I mess up, like, don't hold it against me.
Yeah.
Like, because it is a way, it's like a relearning in many ways for a lot of people. And I think that we have to be comfortable enough to make mistakes, to be corrected, to not take offense.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big way to kind of move forward with it.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean?
I can't think of a single person I've known, and I've gotten it wrong so many times. I can't think of a single person I've known who, when I've messed up their pronouns, has gotten angry. It's always the people who are worried about messing up the pronouns that get angry about it. It's never the people whose pronouns it is.
Got you.
Is what I've noticed.
Got you.
The number of times I've messed it up and I've been like, I'm so sorry, and they've been like, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Just you've acknowledged that you made a mistake. It's all good.
Yeah.
So
fair dues. PhD student. Got your PhD. What did you do your PhD in?
Ooh, I did my PhD in passenger information design for the railways.
My biggest question is why Shalaka? Why that?
Because I got paid to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
got you. Got you.
It was
Okay,
the
enough.
PhD that was paying me money to do it, and I was like, I don't want to get a job. I'd like to do the research to see whether this is the career for me. And I'd like to do it in a way where I can live a good life while doing it. And this PhD gave me all of that. I wasn't too fussed about... When I first started applying, I had all these big dreams. And then when I found out that no one in the UK was doing the kind of research I wanted to do, I was like, well, I just kind of want to do research.
Yeah.
And the most logical, practical way possible, I'll do that one.
Okay, why were you... Because I've always been interested as to why people get into the things they get into. So why did research appeal to you?
I don't know. At that point in time, I'm trying to think. What happened, I think, was I did my undergraduate in psychology, and I got into psychology because I wanted to be a therapist.
Okay.
Not just I wanted to be a therapist in New York where clients pay you $500 an hour to sit on a couch and talk to you about their problems. I wanted to have Sarah Jessica Parker on my couch. That was my big dream. And then when I started my degree, I found out that it's very different to the US. And the only path that was laid in front of me was to do another degree in clinical psychology, but you can't do that degree until you get some work experience, and all of it sounded really boring and messy and not interesting. So I was like, I still want to do psychology in some way, shape, or form. And then somebody was like, why don't you do research? Which is how I kind of got into it.
Okay, got you. And that desire to initially be a psychologist, though, was it just financial, or was it because there was a part of you that was like, I wanna help people, or was it like, I just want the lifestyle?
I think I realized the thing that I enjoy the most, which is ironically my job now, is talking to people. Well, now I talk at people, but still, I like meeting new people. I like hearing about their stories. I like asking really intrusive questions. One of the things that racist girl didn't like, she was like, why are you so nosy? I was like, no, I'm not nosy. I'm Indian. Like, we ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just want a job where I get to just chat to people all day, because there's nothing I love more than socializing and chatting to people and finding out about their lives. So, yeah.
That desire to want to socialize and chat to people and find out about their lives, do you think in any way that was linked to being like an only child, in the sense of not having a lot of people to talk to when you were growing up?
Ouch!
I'm just trying to get to the bottom. I'm not nosy. I'm just asking some
Have you
intrusive
considered
questions.
being a therapist?
This is as close to therapy as I probably will ever come. No, I'm curious about it. Like, I really love the idea of helping people and conversation also.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just curious. Like, where did that come from? Where do you think that came
I've
from?
never thought about it that way before, but honestly, I don't think you're wrong. It might be that, because I didn't have any siblings. I used to talk to myself a lot when I was growing up, or to imaginary characters from books, which is very embarrassing.
Hey, at least you're not still doing it now, or else maybe
no, I don't read anymore. I can't be bothered. Yeah, that could be it, actually.
No, I got you. What I'm curious also, like, because India seems like such another world to me. You know, it's like that side of the globe, just, it all feels like such a different world, different culture. What was it like for you growing up in India? Like, what was that experience like?
I'd say there's a lot of similarities to the UK in that it's very westernized. So a lot of like, I grew up speaking English for most of my life.
And what language was the mother tongue?
So my parents speak Malayalam.
Malayalam.
I used to speak a little bit of Malayalam, and then in school I was taught Hindi. But then around the house we just ended up mostly speaking English.
Okay.
These differences are one of the things that I loved about the UK that most people will not agree with me about, is when I first moved here, it's so different to India. It's so individualistic. That people would just leave you alone. And in India, everyone's talking, everyone's watching. There's family everywhere.
Got you.
Like, every time there's like tons of people visiting all the time. Like, you're always around people, seeing people, being around people, chatting to people, going to places where there's tons of people. You go to like a wedding every month.
Yeah.
And what I liked about the UK is no one knew, like, I was anonymous. No one knew my business.
Got you.
So that's the key difference, I think, between being in India and the UK.
Okay. Got you. And do you sometimes miss being back in India?
Mostly the food. Obviously my family.
Oh, but you can get a lot of that here, surely?
You can, but there's like some firstly, it's tons cheaper in India.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of very specific things that my mom makes at home, or my grandma would make, or like some of the food that's not like commercial enough to sell.
Okay.
That you get at home, or specific versions of it that only my mom can make. That I miss a lot.
Understood. What's your favorite dish that your mum would make for you?
My mom makes a really good chicken curry.
Okay.
And she makes a really good pilau, or pilau, as you say it in this country. But it doesn't taste anything like the pilau. I can't really describe what the difference. Maybe it's the amount of ghee, maybe it's the types of vegetables, but it just doesn't taste the same as stuff from takeout in this country.
Got you. And then, like, you know how you said like your mum would make things that are they're not commercialized enough to sell over here. What's an example of that?
So, ironically, I used to hate this as a child, but it's called upma, and it's like ground. Oh, what's the best way to describe it? It's like rice but squidged together.
Okay.
But it's like really fine. It's not like, it's like rice flour almost.
Okay.
Or like it's super grainy in texture. It's got like vegetables in it and stuff. Yeah. I can't.
Right.
It's like a palau, but instead of rice, it's like really ground up rice flour. I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Upma.
Upma. UPMA. In case anyone's interested.
Upma.
Yeah.
And then, because I love Indian food, so I think this is why I'm asking so many questions.
Yeah.
But this is one that I really have always wanted to know, and someone may be listening at some point who really wants to know this. How do you make the pilau rice so separate? Like when I make rice, it always ends up being like
congealed.
Yeah, but how do you get it so separated?
So first things, if you want to make like a good separated type of rice, you got to use basmati, nothing else.
Okay.
And then you got to cook it right. There's different methods to doing this.
I love this. Shalaka's basically saying you're cooking it wrong, Roman. So here's how you cook it right.
Because there's no wrong way to cook rice, but if you want like to achieve a specific, it's like science. If you if you want to achieve a specific result, you have a method to it. So different people have different ways. Some people say 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water. Exactly like that. I do the more traditional method of you put rice, you put water on top, and then you get water up to this part on your finger.
Okay.
And then the way in which I've achieved like perfectly like separated rice is you turn it on, you put a lid on, put it on boil. Once it's boiling, turn the heat all the way down, keep the lid on. And then just let it cook out. And then when it's like super close, there's just the tiniest bit of water left, you turn off the heat and then just let it steam for a bit.
Okay. All right. You've got the recipe, you've got the instructions right there. And I've got it right here. I'm going to be doing that now. Because I remember once someone was like, no, you need to fry the rice first. And then once you fried it in oil, then you put the water in. And I've tried so many different ways.
You can do that method, but the problem with it is even if you do it that way, you got to put the right amount of water in and then let it cook as much as possible with the lid on and then let it steam. Turning off the heat is key.
That's key.
Yeah.
All right. So boil. Once it boils, turn the heat right down. Once there's just a little bit of water left on top, turn it all the way off. Take it off the hob. Or leave it on the hob.
Doesn't matter. You can leave it just cooking in its own steam.
And then steam. All right. Fantastic. Thank you. And that's the end of the episode. All right. Fantastic. Shame. You mentioned shame in your eulogy. Yeah. What's your relationship with shame?
I think I just thought it was funny to mention it because one of the classic Asian not insults, but when you'd be naughty as a child, they'll say she's being shameless. Okay. And sometimes when I write a joke, especially a joke about my parents, I'm like, oh, I'm being shameless, even though it's not like shameless in the sense of the actual definition of the word.
Yeah.
That's so the fact that I was talking about making fun of the people who love me, and then I was like, maybe that shame should also be in that equation somewhere.
Okay, got ya. Do you feel has shame ever actually been a part of your life in a sense of making you either do certain things or change certain things about yourself, or even just approach things in a different way? Have you ever felt that at any point?
Oh, I feel shame every single day.
What, really?
Yeah, it's not shame, but it's like anxiety. So I'll ruminate over things. Like there's interactions I've had 6 months ago that are still living in my head today. So it's like that kind of shame. Sometimes shame's played a role in, there's certain jokes that I used to tell, and then they started to, it's not shame, it is kind of shame, where it would make me feel icky when I realized that what I was doing was kind of being, the audience was laughing at me and my culture rather than at a good joke. So I've stopped doing those jokes now. But those would make me feel like shame. Even when I got off stage, sometimes the laughter would just sound a bit wrong, and I'd be like, I'm a bit ashamed that I said that.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one. Kind of trying to figure that side of comedy out,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had jokes before that killed.
Yeah.
But then I got to a stage where I'm like, I am so reinforcing a stereotype here,
That's exactly it. Yeah.
you know, or that's all I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's not really clever. It's not interesting.
Yeah.
It just generates laughter. And there is that feeling of like, I'd be in a room that's like an all white room or something.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling like, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this is uncomfortable. But yeah, so you mentioned that, like, obviously where comedy's concerned, you felt that before,
Mm-hmm.
that degree of shame, like with certain bits of material and whatnot. Has it ever motivated you?
It's motivated me to drop a joke for sure. It's also motivated me to not give a shit as much.
All right. Tell me more about that not giving a shit.
I think it took a long while to get to this place where, sometimes it depends on how nervous I am, but sometimes my accent is more Indian. And then it got to the point where I noticed that especially when I was stressed, at the Comedy Store is a big place for this, where I get stressed and my accent gets more Indian and the jokes sound funnier to people.
Got you. Slight brag there also, you know, at the Comedy Store. This is where this tends to happen.
So the reason why I bring it up is because the first time I noticed it was my boyfriend and somebody else as well. A couple of different people pointed it out. They were like, "Oh, you're putting on the accent to get through the gong." And I was like, "I'm not putting it on." But then I watched the video and I was like, "Who? That's insane."
You didn't necessarily recognize
the
that
accent,
person,
because my accent's changed so much over the years of being here, and that accent's what I sound like when I talk to my parents. But it sounded so alien, I guess, to the people who know me, especially through comedy, that it sounded like I was doing a fake Indian accent just to get through the gong show.
Got you.
So it's kind of motivated me to, if the accent happens, not give a shit. But especially in front of a completely white audience, I'm very cognizant of. I err on the side of being a bit too worried about whether they're laughing at me or the accent.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, so that's something I think about quite a bit.
Yeah.
Where it's motivated me to just do whatever makes me feel comfortable and not worry about what other people are thinking. If the accent happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
I think that's really important, like massively important, to just be comfortable in your own skin and just be like, well, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
But that feeling of watching yourself back though, and sometimes being like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
I realized that whenever I would do a black gig, I started watching my material back and I'd be like, why am I talking like that?
Yeah.
Why have I seemingly become a little bit more top boyish?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't talk like that.
Yeah.
I don't use those phrases. So the idea is I need to be authentic. Like I need to just be as true to me as possible.
Yeah.
But if these things happen, they happen also. It's like maybe there is something that's going on in there where it's like, I do feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So I'm just relaxed a bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
I have that I find that more and more I've done Asian gigs, the more I realize the humor is so different. Not the humor, the piss taking is so different.
Right.
So there's certain ways in which when I'm at an Asian gig, like I remember a couple of, we were in an Asian heavy audience at a gig, and a couple of my friends who were comedians as well were standing in the back and they were watching me, and I was like, this must be so weird to them to watch me like this, because I'm talking to this audience in a completely different way that you would talk to someone while doing banter in the UK.
Yeah.
It's like Indian banter where you're like the mannerisms that you say, oh ho, or like it's like a very different way of talking.
Yeah.
And that was the first time where I was like, oh, it's fine. I can do both and I can be comfortable. I'm not selling out either side.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe it's just that you were relaxed.
Well, maybe it's partly that. I think there's some things I have to get more comfortable with it, because the piss taking, that's vastly different in terms of like black audiences and black culture. And, you know, I know that you've done quite a few roast battles also and have excelled in roast battle, may I say, which I've been very, very like, you know, enjoyed watching this rise of you in roast battle terms. But genuinely, like the way that black people at gigs will roast and kind of like deliver stuff is vastly different to how you'd probably see it at like a more of a white gig, or as someone said to me recently, commercial gigs.
Oof.
That's what I was told. There's commercial gigs, and then there's the black circuit or the other circuits, but that's how they refer to it as a commercial.
Somebody
gig.
called me an alternative comedian once.
Alternative comedian. Do you see any degree of you that could be viewed as alt?
No, I think they just meant I was brown.
Oh, that is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's alternative comedy, but I don't think that's what they actually mean by it. You know what I mean?
No, I was like, I don't have a funny hat.
Yeah.
My jokes aren't like surreal.
Yeah. Although I must say, surrealist comedy, it is something that I really love.
Same.
Because I
Very
just
much.
can't do it. There's just no part of me that can figure out how to do that, but love it.
No, it's not. I don't think it's my vibe.
Yeah.
I enjoy watching it and I wish I could do it, but I can't figure out how to get there.
Is there anyone that you like in particular? Like in terms of alternative or surrealist type comedy?
Ellie Mackenzie is really, she's so funny. Luke Rolson is also really great. Sue Me does a great job. Sue Me's one of my favorite people in the world.
Shout out Sue Me.
Yeah.
Saw Sue Me the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out Sue. But yeah, she's fantastic. She's done and continues to do so well. Talk to me a little bit about roast battle though. How did you kind of find if for those of you who don't know, because I got to appreciate at some point in the future someone might be listening to this and they don't know what that is, but it's basically you tell us what's roast battle?
It's just comedians taking the piss out of each other on stage.
Effectively.
That's what it is.
When did you kind of discover that you had a bit of a aptitude for roasting?
I think I just did it a couple of times and I really enjoyed it. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm such an Asian that having a strict deadline for the submission of my material has made all the difference. Like if I'm just left to my own devices, I won't write a new joke for months. But with roast battle, you have to by a certain point. So
yeah, I
think that whole deadline mentality, that's what got me in the first place.
That's fantastic. In the sense of that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
You know, that's so rational, but it's true. It's like without a deadline, oh man, the material just like it can just be the same.
Yeah, and people are like, set your own deadlines. I was like, no, I know myself. Yeah. If someone else is I respect them, but I don't respect my own deadlines.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh man, but yeah. So of course, so it was a good exercise in writing. Gave you a deadline to work towards. Now I've roasted on 3 occasions. Did 1 roast for Roast Battle at Angel, and then I've done 2 roasts on like the Africa versus Caribbean kind of clashes. Right, that I've done. Personally, hate roasting.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like I just know within me that personality. I'm too concerned about how the other person might feel. I'm concerned about how I'm gonna feel. Yeah. So from that perspective, how do you deal with that side of it, or do you feel totally like just cold to it?
I think the things that make it easier are I always think about. To me, it's about writing the funniest possible jokes with the information you're given. So sometimes I forget, which is not always a good thing, but I forget it's about a person. It feels like this is the topic, and you have to write 5 solid jokes that are as unique and that people aren't gonna predict the punchlines to, and as different as possible about this topic.
Yeah.
In terms of the other person feeling bad, the thing that makes it the easiest is roast battle is a very male-dominated environment, and I find it very hard to feel sympathy for men. So
thanks for letting me know that now. Yeah.
It's just most of the time it is a man, and most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I can kind of predict what he's gonna say about me. It's like, oh, she looks like Velma from Scooby-Doo. She's hairy. Her boyfriend is white, so she's a race traitor. Like. It's just, I know what they're going to say about it.
Plus, you're giving them the ammunition to use. So with that ammunition, you kind of know they're only going to probably be able to use it in a number of ways. Yeah. You know. And
also I think, to me, it's the idea of consent that I've given you the consent to use that material. You've given me the consent to make these jokes about you. We're both, like, the thing I find really uncomfortable is, weirdly enough, if I do crowd work with someone, taking the piss out of them in the audience because they haven't consented to that. They've just come out to enjoy themselves in the evening. Yeah. So for me to be like, oh, you're such a Peter with that mustache, that feels weird.
Yeah, and no one ever says that. No one ever calls anyone in the audience a pedo. Who would do such a thing? Come on, that's so.
But
Yeah.
like when you do crowd work and the audience members almost giving you permission by being a dick or being like super eager to talk, then I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like one of the, I try and be the nicest crowd work guy possible, but I said something once and it really didn't sit well with me. It was just this guy had really big ears.
Yeah.
And I made light of him. And
Yeah.
in my heart, I was like, come on, Roman. Like, you know
Yeah.
how self-conscious you are.
Yeah.
This guy knows his ears are massive.
Yeah.
But you have now just, it was one of those things where it's like,
Yeah.
it didn't sit well with me. But I get what you mean. That consent in roast battle is there.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, roast battle has taken you international.
It has, yes, yeah.
Tell me more about that.
They flew me out to Denver to compete in the World Championships this year, which was really nice. It was a lovely experience.
Yeah.
It was interesting to meet American comedians as well, see what their lives are like. It was tons of fun, yeah.
What was the standout thing for you from meeting American comedians?
The standout thing was how lovely they were. Not that I expected them to be not lovely, but especially because you're so used to British society where people are a bit reserved. I myself am this. People have told me that I do this, where I have a bit of a wall up, and then when they get to know me further, they're like, oh, okay, fine.
Got you.
But just going out there, and I think the thing that stood out to me the most was I was there with my boyfriend, and all of them were like talking to him as if he was another comedian as well, which doesn't happen in the UK as much.
Yeah.
Where he says that sometimes when he hangs out with comedians, he's like, they don't think I'm an interesting person who has anything to offer to this hangout. So I think that was what stood out to me, where they act like everyone in that situation had something interesting to say, was an equal part of the group.
Right.
There was a lot of like respect to friends and family as well that I loved so much.
That's beautiful. I'll be honest, when I'm out, I want to talk to the person who's not a comedian.
Yeah.
Like, give me the person who's not a comedian for a little while.
Yeah.
Because as comedians, sometimes it's like the conversation tends to go in one direction.
Oh, I did this gig actually.
Yeah. Unless you know someone on a deeper level where you can get a bit introspective and you know some things about each other's lives, it just goes in one direction. So let me find out about other people.
Yeah.
But cool. All right. Netflix specials. You mentioned that you're the record holder for them. Yeah, which I love that. Yeah, I love that for you. Yeah. Or as my friend would say, listen, if you like it, I love it. Right. But how do you feel about that in terms of, is that the ambition? You want to kind of like have those Netflix specials?
I'm just manifesting.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And you're working towards it.
Yeah.
Which is the second part.
I'm trying. I just thought that would be a funny thing to put in. A little bit of throw in some manifestation there.
Yeah. But do you want it? Do you want it? Do you genuinely want it?
I think I would want it. Yeah. No, that would be pretty cool. That'd be, maybe it's the Asian in me again, but that'd be cool to show something tangible to my parents, you know? It's like, look, I'm on Netflix. You know Netflix.
Yeah.
That's it. They're very supportive and super proud of me, but it'd be nice to show my family something tangible after all of this. Because right now I'm just like, I'm doing a gig. I'm at another gig. So it'd be nice to be like, look, that it's there. Everyone can touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's there forever.
Yeah.
Or for as long as the servers
keep
working. But okay, no, that's beautiful. You know, I think that idea of like having that as a vision, whether it's Netflix or, you know, whoever.
Yeah.
Comedy Central, HBO, but to have a vision of, I want that tangible thing out there. You know, that's what matters. The diving in all of your money like Scrooge McDuck. You know, I was thinking about this from a scientific perspective, and I'm pretty sure that would just cause death to dive into a pool of money, because wouldn't paper after a while kind of bunch together?
Oh, like in a corn thing.
What's the corn thing?
You know when people drown in like a grain store or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way.
So, you know, I was just thinking, you know, that.
Also, it would get all the money dirty. It would have to be all disposable income. Like I would have to have an entire swimming pool's worth of disposable, like actually physically disposable income.
What does money mean to you?
A lot.
How much emphasis do you put on finance?
I think for someone who has no reason to be this way, I'm a very anxious person when it comes to money, especially because it's part of it is I've always been this way. My parents have no explanation for it.
Yeah.
I have no, like, I can't have claimed to have struggled in my life. But I've always been really conscious about, ever since I got since I started my PhD, or even before that when I was working through uni, I'd put money away just because I was super conscious. And now on top of that, there's an extra layer of guilt because my boyfriend's paying the bills to support my dream. And the idea of returning that favor, I know it's not transactional, but the idea of doing something really kind for him and buying him a year-long holiday, I think that's my end goal.
Oh, sweet. And now it's here, documented.
One day.
Video. No, that's cool. So that dynamic at the moment, so when you say follow your dream, so are you full-time in comedy now?
I am, yeah.
Amazing. That is I feel like that's the first dream.
Yeah.
Like in my mind, like that's the first dream, to just say I'm doing this full time.
Yeah.
And then every other dream kind of builds on that one. You know, when did you go full time?
So it wasn't a conscious choice. It literally just happened because I lost my job, and then the job I got after that, the company kind of blew up in smoke. It went bankrupt. So they were like, actually, we don't have a job for you.
Yeah.
And then the job market completely, like I have friends who were looking for a job at the same time who's still looking for a job now. Like that's how bad it has been. And by the time all of that happened, it was a couple of months to Edinburgh. So my boyfriend was like, how about you just chill for a bit? You're going to Edinburgh for a month anyway. You're not going to be able to get a job that'll be like, yeah, you can fuck off for a month. And then I just never got a job again.
What a great way to go full time. But not just that, but just so great to have someone so supportive in your life. Like that means a lot.
Is, yeah.
Yeah, that's special. Well, wishing best for the both of you. Emotional. So there's just a few more things to touch on with regards to your eulogy that I want to branch out with you. But you mentioned a lot of wine in your eulogy, some discounted wine. When did you discover or develop your penchant for wine?
I think I've always loved wine. I think the when I really started to love wine was a lot of, for some reason, my friends and I, when we first became friends at uni, were a bunch of losers where we spent a lot of time just hanging around in our corridor and watching films and chatting. We did go out a bit as well. I'm not a complete loser, but a lot of my fondest memories have been sitting around in rooms with them playing board games while drinking wine.
Got ya.
So I associate wine with that. And I especially associate the Sainsbury's 6 bottles 20% off offer with all my best memories.
Yeah.
Where you just end up in a supermarket with one of your best friends and it's like, oh, we'll get a bottle of wine each and there'll be other people there and we'll drink it, and then you'll look at the sign and it says 6 bottles of wine for £20 off, 20% off.
Yeah.
It's always the start of a good night.
I got you. Are you a red or a white or a rosé?
I used to be a snob. I used to be a red only. And now I've started. One of my friends during my PhD, she was Hungarian. She gave me a Hungarian rosé, and I said, thank you very much. And then I just looked at it. I was like, as if I'd ever drink a rosé. And it was the most delicious wine I ever had in my life. And I was like, maybe I should stop being an asshole.
It's always a good thing to stop being, you know, if you can. When did you, do you remember the name of it?
Nope.
Oh, man.
Couldn't even read it. It was all in Hungarian.
I got you. I got you. Because I'm not really a rosé kind of guy.
Yeah.
I've never really tried really a rosé. I just, you know what it is? I just associate rosé with femininity.
Yeah. Maybe you should, you should try a bit of that feminine energy.
Maybe. You know, I mean, I grew up in a house with 4 women. I should know about feminine energy. Maybe I need to transcend to my wine. But I think every time I've ever seen you drink wine, it's always been red.
Yeah.
You know.
Red's my favorite. Yeah.
What kind of red do you go for?
My favorite's a Malbec. I like a really good Malbec.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably a Malbec.
Malbec.
Yeah.
I'm a Cabernet Sauvignon.
Cabernet Sauvignon is also great.
I'm a Cabernet Sauvignon kind of guy.
Yeah, my favorite white is probably a Zinfandel.
Oh, a Zinfandel. I don't think I've had a Zinfandel before.
I think it's a Zinfandel.
It better be. I think I've heard the term before. I think I've heard of it before.
Yeah. I like a really dry white wine. So
when you drink white wine, does there have to be a particular setting for it? Are we talking like
Summer.
Has to be summertime?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm drinking, unless there's someone who doesn't drink red wine that wants to split a bottle. I'm drinking red.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. A Malbec. I'll bear that in mind should I ever have to gift you anything.
Thank you very much.
Malbec is what you go for.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing to touch on with regards to your eulogy. Who is this open mic comedian?
Oh, I wish I knew. Roman, I have been searching for him like the lost love of my life from day. I remember this so clearly. I was helping out a rising star, and he comes on, and it was like I had seen God. I was like, this is the funniest thing I have ever watched in my life. I wish I could remember it word for word, but there's just bits where he'd be like, oh, hers looked like corned beef. She had a yeast infection. And I was like, you cannot be funnier than this. It is impossible to be funnier than this.
Oh my goodness.
He's my hero. He's on, if I ever see, and the problem is I don't remember his face because I was so enthralled. It was like looking into the eyes of God, where you have no clue what it looks like, but you can remember it in your heart.
Oh.
If I see him I will pay good money to find out who this man is.
I'm gonna see if we can get a hashtag going. And let's figure out who wrote this bit of material where his ex-girlfriend's vaginas tasted like different bits of meat.
Not tasted. No.
Look.
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 Look. That's what makes it
just
that extra bit of an edge, you know? Not tasted, looked like different bits of deli meat.
Okay, so let's use a little bit of that psychology degree. And if you were going to dissect the mentality of the person who writes a bit like this, what would you say? Would you say that person has a love for women, or maybe a pain and a disdain for ex-girlfriends? Like, what do you think? You saw the bit. What's your thoughts?
I would say he has a very very male need for attention. And I think he saw an opportunity of something that he has never seen before. And he is correct. I have never seen that before.
Yeah.
And he grabbed it with both hands.
Well, you know what? I'm sure he's grabbed more than that with both hands before. But what's so good is that is what I love about comedy, in the sense of you take whatever wacky idea you have up here.
Yep.
And you can stand on a stage and say it. And someone somewhere is like, that was the best thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And equally, someone else somewhere is probably going, that was terrible.
Yeah. There's so many crazy things. I've seen someone pretend to fart into their own hands.
Jesus, what comedy nights are you going to?
Open mic, baby. Anything can happen.
No, that is so true. That's so true.
The number of men I've heard talk about how they've either almost been fucked by a dog, have been fucked by a dog, gotten a blowjob from a dog, given a blow. Every version of sex with a dog has been covered. So that's not novel anymore. Don't do that.
That's hack. When's the last time you went to an open mic?
When's the last time I've been to
or performed
Sunday?
at one? Sunday.
But it was Angel Raw, so slightly nicer than an open mic.
I mean, there's open mic and then there's open mic.
Yeah.
Right.
When's the last time I've been to like an open mic?
I'm talking pub, like, back of the pub, curtain going across to divide the pub from the performing stage.
I did one in Tokyo. That was pretty fun though, because I was seeing that was different culturally, so it was interesting to see all their versions of in jokes for people living in Tokyo.
Yeah.
The last time I did an open mic, I can't remember, a couple of months ago maybe.
Got ya. I did one recently, and it was really, I think open mics are essential.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
They're essential to be there. You need them, but I think you also really do need to go and do them, because for me anyway, it's like it just gives you that grounding. It helps you run material, but also it's it kind of gives you an insight as to how far you've come.
Yeah. And
it's important to have that.
Yeah.
To know where you want to go, but then to be like, this used to be my life too. You know? But you mentioned Tokyo.
Yes.
Just touch on that for me. How was that for you, going out to Japan?
Oh, that was tons of fun. It was great to take a break. By the time I came back, I wasn't sure. I missed comedy the week before I came back, and the week of I was really nervous because I hadn't done it in about apart from the odd gig here and there, I hadn't done it in about a month.
Yeah.
It was really good to go away. I would recommend to any comedians take a break.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't taken a proper break. I can't remember the last time I didn't gig in a month in the last 3 years. Yeah, really good for my mental health. I forgot what it felt. I stopped biting my nails. That's how good it was.
Really?
Yeah. It was insane.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This nail biting, this has been a lifelong thing?
Yeah, since I was about 3.
Oh, wow. Okay, got you. And Japan helped you to stop. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Shout out to Japan.
Yeah.
What was the highlight for you?
The food.
Of
All
that
the
trip?
food. Just so cheap, so delicious, so tasty. Just amazing food.
Got ya. And what were the people like? Were they friendly?
Some of them were. What I will say, yeah, I think they were friendlier in Tokyo. The further you go out of Tokyo, people are a little bit more reserved. Met some great people out there. Some very friendly tourists as well.
Yeah.
Met this couple who were retired, sold their house, and were just traveling the world for the rest of their lives, which was very inspirational.
Yeah.
I was just sitting next to them and be like, wow, I want to be you when I'm 50.
Love that.
Yeah. We were like, where are you going next month? They're like, I don't know. We'll find out. We don't have a home. And I was like, wow, that is so brave to be doing at 50 as well. They're like, well, our kids have moved out, so we'll just sell our house and travel.
Yeah, but those people, if they needed a home, I bet they could get a home.
They have 3 kids.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They get a home.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's also the money. You need the money to be able to do that.
But no, that's lovely though. All right, well, listen. Last thing I always ask people when they come onto the podcast is this. I should have told you this earlier because then you could have actually prepped it. I'm kind of putting you on the spot with this, but I asked them this question. And the question is, what's the one bit of advice that you know you should take, but you just haven't taken it?
Slow down.
Slow down.
With regards to everything. My parents, since I was a kid, have been telling me just do everything slower, eat slower, make decisions slower, just slow the fuck down. And I still can't do it. Like, I accidentally booked a train going the wrong direction that cost us hundreds of pounds. And then I had to cry with customer service on the phone, being like, that was my mistake. I'm so sorry.
Can you recreate that scene for me right now? And action.
That was my mistake. I'm so sorry. I was just paying attention. I got confused. Your app is actually really confusing,
All right. You might have warmed my heart with that one. Maybe I'd have refunded you the money too.
Yeah, they did actually. They were very nice about it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so slow down. Why do you think you move so fast?
I think I get bored really easily. And I think a second without doing something would bore me, which is also very unhealthy. Do not recommend living this way. I get bored super easily. Like, I'm that classic millennial of like, TV's got something on. I've got my laptop doing invoices in front of me while playing on my phone. Like, that is...
So, 3 screens.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? With that being the case, I mean, firstly, thank you for being this engaged for the last hour. I'm glad you didn't fall asleep. But secondly, shout out to your boyfriend. That's 6 years of non-boredom.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, like, if you get bored easily and you're still going strong, I mean, that's a good sign.
I think because we do so many things on a daily basis. Like, every week we're trying something new. Also, I gig. Like, the best thing for boredom is throwing yourself into a new situation every single day of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's a classic job for someone who gets bored really easily.
Yeah.
Go out and gig every day. So,
well, it feels like you found your calling.
Yeah, I have. Really chaotic.
Well, listen, it's a beautiful chaos. Shalaka, thank you so much for being a guest here on Eulogise Me.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed it.
I've had a great time.
Amazing. Everyone, it's Shalaka Kurup.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you. Thank you.
Peace. Lovely. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me. Also, sorry, my hands are...
But that's staying in. Honestly.